Hi everyone, so in this video I want to talk about the rename operator in relational algebra. What the rename operator does is, as its name suggests, it can be used to rename, and we may choose to rename an entire table or some of its attributes. The way this works is it actually has three general syntax. The first one is, first of all, it's denoted by a row. I can write row and an R here. That's the name of the relation that I need to rename it to, and an expression here. So what it means is that I want this entire expression to be taken and renamed to this R. So that's what this syntax means, and this expression could again be the name of a relation itself, or it can be a longer a longer relational algebra expression. So that's the first syntax. The second syntax is to use row a1, a2, and so on up to an, uh, and again an expression here, and these are basically the names of the attributes that I want, and this is the expression right here. And as you may guess, the schema that this returns, this expression e returns, should actually have n columns, otherwise that's an issue. That's the second syntax that I can use, and the third one is something like this. I can do r a1 comma a2 and so on up to an, and an expression here, and this time it's kind of just a mixture of these two right here. What it means is that take this expression and rename it to a relation R, and rename the columns in this expression to a1, a2, and so on up to an. That's what this third syntax means. That's the rename operator, and let's look at some examples right here. So what I can do is, if you remember correctly, we earlier had a student table which had some SID right here, and some S name, and another table we had was a professor table which had some PID and some P name here. And when I wanted to tell you about joins, I just changed this PID to ID and PName to name. But now what we can actually do is, since we know the rename operator, we can do something like this: rename ID comma name, and here I'll give student, and now I can do a union here. So a union, rename ID comma name from professor, and of course this should be ideally it should be in a project operator right here. I would do it like this, and here again I should write id comma pname, and here as well id and pname. But now this union actually works because these two have the exact same schema, not these two, not the tables themselves, but these expressions here, actually this expression right here and this expression right here, these two have the same schema because they are both basically just tables which have an ID and a name. The union operator actually works. It doesn't give us an error right here. That's how we can use the rename operator. At this point I want to tell you what the rename operator actually is unavoidable for, and that's something called disambiguation in self joins. And let me just write this down. It's disambiguation in SelfJoins. And from the name you might guess that a self join is basically when we try to join a table with itself. And remember the countries table we had when we were working with MySQL. So let's say I wanted to get some pairs of countries which are in the same continent. Actually, I want every pair of country which is in the same continent. So what I want as my result is some country 1 here and a country 2 here, and I want all pairs of countries which are in the same continent, so which basically have the same region ID. And this is an example of a self join. I'm going to have to join the countries table with a countries table itself. And this absolutely cannot be done without a rename operator. uh, so what I'll do here is, let's say the first step is to join a countries table with with another countries table. And now what I'll have to do is, I want to say something like the countries, the region ID from this country's table should be the same as the region ID from this country's table. And there's no way I can distinguish between these two country tables right now. So what I should do at this point is do a rename of this to C1, and then a rename of this to C2. I hope it's clear. So I've renamed this to C1 and this to C2. And now what I can do is, I can say something like a select here which says C1 dot country name, C name, equals C2 dot country name. So that's something I can add to this. So now it actually makes sense that I'm trying to actually I should also have a project operator right here which just takes the country name. So I'm projecting C1 and C2. So the final query would look something like this: project C1 dot country name, comma C2 dot country name. That's what I'm trying to project. And what do I project this from? I project this from first select the rows which have C1 dot country name equal to C2 dot country name. And this I want to do on a cross join of countries with itself, and this should be renamed to C1, and this one should be renamed to C2 countries. So that's how we can write this query. And another actually simpler way to do this would be to do something like this. I can rename my tables. I'm just going to skip the project and the select operators right here and just write the rename operator. So what I can do is rename C1, and so I've got C name 1, and region ID, I'm just going to call it RID. And let's just keep the RID to RID itself. And this I do with the countries table. And next I do another rename C2 CNAME 2 comma RID, and I do this on the countries table itself. So at this point what I've done is I've renamed all other columns apart from RID right here. And what this allows me to do is now I can use a natural join right here, because now for a natural join RID is the only column that's common between these two. So that's another thing I can do. But I can either do it the way I've done here, or I can do it the way I've done here. But in either case, what we've noticed is that the rename operator is unavoidable here, and this is called disambiguation in self joins, because we are removing the ambiguity as to which country table we are referring to. That's an ambiguity, and that's what we are removing. So it's called disambiguation in self join, and in this case the rename operator is absolutely unavoidable. So that's about the rename operator. And there's a couple of other things about relational algebra that we are yet to look at. We'll look at those in the videos that follow, and later we'll also look at how we do this renaming in MySQL. So stay tuned for it.